Welcome to the Born to Be Brave YouTube channel, and you guys are gonna love today's guest, Anastasia Aleman. Is that right? Ali? No, say it.
Anastasia Aleman.
Aleman. I'm terrible. I took Spanish in middle school, high school, and all 4 years of college. And I used to be like do translation work for my a job when I was, working my way through college and after. And part of my job was interact in between the workers that didn't speak English and then the workers that didn't speak Spanish, and helping translate. And today, yeah, you don't use it, you lose it, let me tell you, for me. Well,
No,
welcome to the
definitely.
show.
I'm
I'm so
the same way. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And you know what? We were just talking about you have to get good at anything, you have to start out being crappy at stuff, right? And
100%.
And then the reason I met Anastasia, let me tell you just a little bit about how I met Anastasia. I felt called to go to the women's subto retreat, which is a creative finance group, right? And Rocio organized the first ever retreat, and it was in Asheville, North Carolina, which was awesome because it was before the flooding, right? So which is so sad for them, but it was so beautiful, right? When we were there. And
Yeah.
you came and we went floating, right?
Yeah.
Um, it
I
was
was
so
there only during the day for one
for
day.
one day, yes, because you had a brand new baby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're a CPA, but when I fell in love with you, one of the reasons, besides you're darling, but is because you help women. You're a CPA, but you don't do personal taxes. You actually help people with financial literacy and to put a plan together, I think, to help them leave their W-2 job eventually. Is that correct? Or to be able to retire and have financial independence. Tell me exactly, like in a little nutshell, like your little elevator pitch. What is it that you do?
Yeah. So right now I'm focused on financial coaching and helping women retire early, build wealth, and diversify into additional investments like real estate outside the stock market. So that's primarily what I'm focused on.
Yeah, that's great, right? And I feel like women kind of maybe sometimes shy away from going into that field. So I'm so glad you're there.
Yeah, I started out as a CPA, realized it's not for me. I don't like it. I should have gone the finance route. I got into real estate, became a real estate investor, started acquiring properties, got to a point where I could quit my job. And then now I'm just kind of working on this passion project, helping women with, like you said, financial literacy, really taking control of their investments and being able to manage their own portfolios without having to rely on like a money manager or financial advisor.
Yeah, so they educate themselves, right? Hmm.
Yes, it's 100% educational. So I'm not licensed. I'm not selling any securities, any products or anything. It's just purely educational. So they know how to manage their money confidently and how to invest on their own.
Yeah, that's smart. I'm writing a book to educate women on how to invest in real estate. And so they can make good decisions on it. So they don't have to rely on someone else to say, oh, yeah, this is a good deal. Because how do you know it's a good deal, right? What they
Yeah,
think is a good deal might not be a good deal for you. Yeah.
absolutely.
So how did you get started? Tell me a little bit about your childhood maybe and where you came from and then how did you get into like what you're doing now? Like just take us maybe from your childhood kind of to where you're at.
Yeah, so I don't know if you knew, but I was actually born in Russia. I was born and raised in Russia, and I came to America in 2001 when I was 8 years old.
Mhm.
So English was not my first language, and I learned English, through elementary school. And started out, we first came to California, ironically. We lived in Yorba Linda, Orange County area.
That's
And
right
then
by me.
yeah, and then we went to Alabama. It was a big move. So from Russia to California, then Alabama. And really, I spent the most time in Alabama. I started out, I guess, back in my childhood, I was the weird kid that really liked math. And I think it was because of the language barrier that it was one of the subjects that came really easy to me. So I
Yeah.
always gonna set up, I want to be a personal financial advisor. Like that was one of the things I said. And then when I entered college and I pursued finance and accounting double major, really, I would say what ended up happening is one of the big four accounting firms. I did some interviews just for practice, and they ended up giving me an opportunity for an internship, which then turned into a full-time job offer. And it was a great, great opportunity that really I think took me down a different path, like led me to getting my master's in accounting and CPA license. And when I really enjoyed more the finance aspect of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 years into, my first real job with my degree, I realized, I can't do this anymore. And I was already getting into real estate at that point of time, which is what allowed me to make the exit out of corporate. And then after I exited, I kind of fast forward to where I am today. We actually found out we were 5 or 6 weeks pregnant when I quit my job on right after. So it was a slight surprise, but I think at that time I really evaluated, what do I want to do next? What do I want to focus on? Is it real estate? And then I realized, I don't as much enjoy real estate. It's more kind of a means to financial freedom, right? For most of
Mm-hmm.
us. So I said, what do I really truly enjoy? And it's talking about finances, talking about business, real estate, like those three topics I can talk about all day. But I think the finance passion that I never got a chance to pursue, I just really dove deep and learned as much as I could. And then now I'm just helping others kind of empower themselves and get that knowledge that we were never taught in school, right? We never taught in college. And I feel like a lot of women or, people in general, I feel like they don't have that financial education to be able to make smart decisions and know how to manage their money. And if they had that information, we would all be multimillionaires.
All of us, right? And it is crazy that you got a master's, you worked, you got that internship, you went to school, you mastered English, you went to college, you double majored in really hard majors, right? And
I'll pursue the double major, but they made me drop it and get a master's in accounting. So I dropped the finance degree and picked up a master's in accounting and got my CPA license. I went down the other path.
yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it is interesting that all the things that we really need to use to be successful in life, like emotional resiliency, financial literacy, all these things, they don't teach us in school.
No, they did not.
Yeah.
They
It's
teach us
like,
how to become workers. I feel like they train us and kind of like brainwash us into you need to go to school, you need to go to college, get good grades, get a good job because they're trying to prime you to work until you die, basically.
and
Work until you retire and then you can maybe start enjoying life if you did well saving for retirement. But that's what I focus on is early retirement and helping people really be able to quit their jobs early and start living life on their own terms.
yeah, and really that is I call it job just over broke. And it's interesting that because I've been in real estate for a long time as an
Yeah.
agent. And everyone told me it was really risky to, because I got my degree and my credential and went to all this schooling and I was a teacher. And when I quit teaching there and to go into commission sales, right, real estate, everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's so risky. And everyone told me it was bad. A couple people said it was a good idea, but almost everyone told me, are you crazy? And then when the market crashed in 2008, everyone's like, I hope you still have your credential. You got to get back to teaching, right? And I didn't go back to teaching. I don't even have a credential anymore. And I loved teaching, but I was so poor. And it was, I had time freedom, the same schedule as my kids. Like the reason I picked teaching was because I wanted to have time freedom to do stuff with my kids. But the problem was I didn't have any resources to do anything with them except for like go to the beach or, swim in a pool, free things. But I couldn't do anything because I didn't have any extra money to do fun stuff with them. So it wasn't conducive to the lifestyle I wanted to live, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
How do you help women and change from, put a plan together so they can exit out of their W-2? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it starts out first with them taking a look at where they are now. So, looking at their budget, knowing exactly how much they spend every single month. And it's not about more sticking to the budget and, being a stickler, tracking every dollar. It's more just knowing high level, like this is the expenses that I have,
Hmm.
knowing where their finances are, do they have a good emergency fund? Set up in place, knowing their numbers, so knowing how much they need exactly to make that exit, and then having a plan to come up, with it. So it's just really math. At the end of the day, just, plugging in numbers in a calculator and saying, this is what I have, this is what I need. this is the interest rate, this is the number of years it's going to take me, or how do I get there faster? You either have to increase your returns or, put more money, basically, invest more in order to get there faster.
So you put together a whole plan for them together with you, or they put the plan together.
I would say it's a little bit more like coaching style. So
Okay.
it's not like a physical plan, like here you go, like a financial advisor maybe prints you out a report. No, I would say
Hmm.
it's more very collaborative and we're working together and they have steps that they're going through. Say, okay, this
Hmm.
is in order to have a good financial foundation, these are the 10 steps to get there. And then they start out at the steps and they go through it. It's a 6-month program. So we work together for 6 months and it's a group coaching environment. So right now I have like 5 ladies in a group that I'm doing for this 6-month period. And every week we get on a call and everyone is kind of working on different things. So it's more
Hmm.
question and answers. They have resources and, they're all working toward the same goal.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So you do it on Zoom, sounds
Yeah.
like.
So it's,
Hmm.
it's calls like this, but, very small
Hmm.
person group.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. So you guys, if you're listening to something you're interested in, at the end, we'll tell you how to get a hold of Anastasia so you can join her group or at least explore it and find out more information about it. Tell me about, so when we were on the raft in Asheville, you were telling me some stories about some properties you've bought and some things that happened and how you evolved into real estate investing. Can you share, like, what was your first deal like and what's going on now? And take us through your real estate investing journey.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So starting out, I bought my first house. I think I've always been kind of financially conscious and good with money. So I bought my first house at 21, like straight out of college. I was working a job all throughout college. I was actually working in insurance. So I had a commission-based job as well. And I was licensed in property and casualty insurance. I was selling everybody homeowners insurance, auto insurance, and looking at their finances from that perspective, like looking at their coverage. And once I met my husband, he lived here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I lived in Alabama. And then through my job in accounting, I ended up traveling a lot. And when I met him in Charlotte, we started dating, doing long distance, and I became an accidental landlord because I had to move from, Alabama to Charlotte to move in with him because the travel was just too much. And my job really allowed me to work anywhere. So I chose to move to Charlotte. I had to rent out my house or decide to sell it, right? And I decided to rent it out. I asked my dad. I usually go to my dad for a lot of financial advice before. And I asked him, what should I do, Dad? And he was like, I don't think you should sell it. This was 2018. So I
Hmm.
kept my house and I rented it out. I found the best tenants ever. I think this is what really motivated me and gave me that confidence to pursue real estate because my first tenant was a business owner. He's like a private investigator. He paid the entire year's rent up front in
Wow.
cash. So that was nice. So there was definitely security there. And, he had a good credit, great background check and everything. So I did my due diligence. I had no idea what I was doing. I think I used Zillow at the time to list the property. And then I was actually screening tenants and doing showings virtually because I leveraged my neighbors. Leveraging your network. So I was leveraging my neighbors and they had a little spare key. So I'll say, somebody's coming to look at the house. It's going to be, John, whoever it is, and go, can you please open the door for them? So they would walk around with them, show them the house, acted like as my real realtor per se, or
I
property
love that.
manager. And it didn't take long. It just took like a week or two, couple of showings. And then I found, like I said, the tenant. So it was a really good experience. He took really good care of the property. He was barely there because he traveled. So he just worked out great. And then I think 2000, was it 2020 when COVID started in the beginning of the year? Again, my dad, he just had some feeling. He was like, something is about to happen in the markets and the economy. He was like, with COVID starting, he's like, I think you should sell your house. And I was like, okay, Dad, if you think I should sell it, let's sell it. So I sold my house and I ended up walking away, I think it was 70 something thousand dollars. And it was my primary residence at the time. So I've only been renting out a little bit less than 2 years. So I took all the money tax free, right? Because it was my primary residence and
Yeah.
I had money now. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to actually invest in real estate. And up to that point, from 2018 and 2020, I think there was a lot of learning that took place. I ended up getting properties under contract through like wholesaling means, but I actually wanted to be the buyer on them. So I think there was just a little bit of confusion, right? When you start out in real estate, people tell you you should start wholesaling. And I had money and I had credit. There was no reason why I should start wholesaling. But that was the advice I think people just gave me, and they led me down the wrong direction in the beginning. So my first intentional property we purchased in 2020, and I also purchased it as a primary residence. So I only had to put down 5%, conventional loan.
Hmm.
We moved in, and I convinced my husband to house hack. So I was like, we're gonna live in this one story on a basement little house in Charlotte. It was about 7 minutes from downtown, so it was very close to downtown. It wasn't a great area, but it was going through gentrification, and
Hmm.
um, and I convinced him to move in. We got a storage unit, got all of our stuff into storage that didn't fit because we basically downsized from my big house to Alabama into his house with his stuff. And then now moving into like a 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath house. It was like about 1,200 square feet on top, 1,200 square feet on the bottom. The basement was already finished. So in my mind, I saw opportunity. And I actually had a great realtor. She was the one that told me to buy this house. And I listened to her because she was like, this is a great location, great opportunity. And she said, and you have the opportunity to house hack the downstairs. And me, I was thinking, well, this is a great way to save on our mortgage, get rid of our housing expense. We can basically live for free upstairs. And we decided to move in. Unfortunately, about 30 days into it, my husband said, I do not want to live here. And he just told me um, he doesn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't like the house. He doesn't like the area. He wants his garage. He wants certain things versus I feel like I'm a lot more laid back. I can live anywhere in any conditions. I adapt. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but I told him go out and buy a house. We weren't married. We were just dating at the time. So I bought that house in my own name by myself. And then he went out and bought a house himself. And I never looked at it. I think I was on like FaceTime once where he showed me the house. I was like, if you like it, get it. And I was managing contractors downstairs while I was working upstairs. There was construction going on. And I added a kitchen downstairs in that house because I was going to convert it into like the downstairs being completely separate. So I added a
Hmm.
second kitchen. I'm managing the contractors, everything. And I'd say that house almost broke me and discouraged me from getting into real estate because my husband had to leave and go to Texas for, I think, like 3 months. And then I had two houses. We just moved to the other property. We obviously stayed together. So I moved out of the house I purchased and wanted to house hack and moved into his house that he purchased and then rented it out on Airbnb. And that's kind of how the first one became an Airbnb. Once it was definitely a challenge to get it up and running, the construction, we had a lot of contractor issues and the whole kitchen got built and then something went wrong and then we had to basically demo the entire kitchen, start all over. It was a lot. I don't want to go into the details, but that house I'd say almost broke me, but then I still wanted to pursue traditional real estate investing, and I feel like I didn't really buy an investment property. I bought a house that we just house hacked, and it didn't quite go as planned, right? With my husband not wanting to live there. So then 2021, this is January 2021, we closed on three houses that I bought in Gastonia, North Carolina. So it's about 25 minute drive from Charlotte.
Hmm.
Those were like my really first true investment properties that I bought. And I think maybe I told you a little bit briefly about those. So they're
Hmm.
older mill homes that we purchased. They all had tenants in them. So later on, I discovered through again trial and error and just getting started in real estate that probably not the best move is buying a house with tenants already in them, especially if the landlord is selling them for a reason and you don't know what that reason is, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you don't know what the backstory maybe is.
Yeah, and so those houses, I think I may have told you, we started just transitioning some of our rentals. So those three are the ones we started transitioning to seller financing and then being able to help others become homeowners in the process. So now we became, the bank on them essentially. We did a subto for my own property since I carried the mortgage myself, and then I just wrapped them and then seller financed them to the other people.
Oh, wow. So you bought those three houses on seller finance?
I purchased them conventionally. This is when I was
Uh-huh.
getting started. So I guess to take you, I guess, through the whole real estate journey. So that was kind of
Hmm.
starting out. I was working with realtors. I was buying conventionally on the market, on the MLS. So like at this point, I wasn't doing any creative finance or anything. This was the acquisition side of it was just purely traditional. And
Hmm.
then I bought them as investment loans, I think 15% down. Conventional, I think they were amazing, 3.5% interest rates. This was
Yeah.
early, well, I should say it was locked in December 2020. So this was still when interest rates were amazing. And then it wasn't until 2022 where I started really getting into creative finance, and started meeting a lot of mentors and people around Charlotte that were doing these transactions, where they were wrapping mortgages and doing subto transactions. So those particular ones were, the mortgages actually, I carried the mortgage and then I seller financed them to somebody else and did a wrap. But I didn't
Oh,
acquire
yeah.
it through a
Okay.
subto. They are
Yeah.
subto, but they're my subtos, if that
You're
makes sense.
you're the bank.
Yes.
You own the note, but they own the deed.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. And after I joined Pace Morby's group, that was kind of a little bit more where I got into other investments where I started buying properties off market, where before
Hmm.
I think I started traditionally and I hired a VA. The VA that I was working with, she helped me buy some additional properties, like in Shelby and some in South Carolina. And we were able to buy some of those cash, some of those through private money lenders. So I think that's kind of like the evolution that I went through. I started out traditionally on the market with a realtor, conventional financing, and then
Yeah.
got into creative deals and creative exit strategies at the back end.
So it's really evolved over time, which is how life is, right? How
Absolutely.
important do you think joining mentorships are and getting coaching, like hiring a coach is? I feel like it's super important, but I'm just wondering, what benefits do you think there are proximity to coaching and community?
Yeah, so last year I did a couple of trainings and I feel like I did a long explanation and like actually showed some of the deals that we've done, and showed kind of the progression through the real estate journey and my experience. And I think it really was because I didn't have any mentorship or anybody to kind of help guide me from the time that I started in 2018 becoming an accidental landlord, right, until 2022 when I actually started doing some creative exit strategies. This was years, I think, of like trial and error and just going to meetups and, I would say like what you do traditionally, meeting people, trying to learn, get little bits of nuggets from each, meeting that you go to and people that you interact with, but without really having like a mentor or having any education or anything to help guide you along the way. Because I
Yeah.
think those relationships that you form and, being able to text somebody or call somebody and ask questions here and there, you don't want to do that consistently, right? Or you don't want to call
Yeah.
them all the time. So I love, the sub two community because that's definitely a place that you can always go to get answers. You have a network of people and you have the education material there if you need it.
Yeah, it's crucial, right? I think it really shortens your learning curve and helps you reduce your risk and the mistakes you make. And yeah, it's a great community, and you get to meet nice people, right? And I feel like we all help each other and we learn. And like by doing these, I would never really probably be doing all these interviews, but Pace was like, you should go all in on YouTube. And I'm like, okay. And so it's so fun. I'm like, okay, so who would I love to interview, right? And I just made this list of people and I just started reaching out. But the cool thing is like I didn't know you grew up in Russia and then immigrated here and all that stuff. And then I just thought, okay, I just thought it was the cutest thing that you did all these things and you just kept going because contractors can be difficult. It's an easy barrier to entry, and there's so many horror stories, right? There's good contractors too, but for some reason, there's a lot of problems in that, can be a lot of problems there. And you didn't give up, right? And then when your boyfriend, then husband now is like, oh yeah, I hate this. I don't want to. And that happens in life. This is like this is just part of like life and we're journeying together, right? And we have to navigate and kind of balance between like our family, our spouse, our our jobs, our maybe our personal beliefs. Do you think that mindset plays a part in your journey and how do you navigate the ups and downs of investing and coaching and keep your mindset good?
Yeah, I think for mindset, it's huge to have community because I think a lot of times if you're by yourself and as things go wrong, right, you tend to panic. You think it's the end of the world. Maybe some people, they actually just shut down, like when they get overwhelmed or confused, they do nothing, right? So having, like you said, a mentor, having a community, having somebody to kind of go to for support is
Mhm.
huge for your mindset. To having, people to support you. I think is the really the key.
Yeah, it really matters, right? Because there's I think that the higher the risk, but I think that it's really risky to stay in a W-2 job your whole life too, because I think that's the greatest risk because over time, because you don't know, all of us have an expiration date, right? We don't know when we're all going to die. But if you spend your whole life working for a job and then you wait till later to live a life, do all the things you really wanted to do, I think there's a lot of risk involved with that. And that's really what most people do. I'm really
I-
glad you're teaching women.
Yeah, I think the more later you are in life that you start trying to explore new ventures, I think the harder it becomes, right? Is when you start having children and you get married. So I think anybody that's especially like in their 20s or 30s, like that is the best time because I think it just gets harder and harder when you get older, right? To make a complete change and to try something new.
There's a
But
lot of moving pieces then.
absolutely. And I feel like I experienced that, right? Of quitting my job and then becoming a mom, it started a lot more moving pieces and things, you can't always plan for.
Yeah. And life stuff happens. Surprise. Surprise. And it's interesting though. I also think I just hope that if there are women or men that are over 40, and you're older and you're like thinking, "Oh, it's just too late for me." It's just never too late. Can you imagine, don't you think if somebody either bought two or three rentals or house hacked or did, and then house hacked their first one and then bought a couple more and got a duplex or a fourplex, or if they don't want to invest like that and they want to be a passive investor and they invest in somebody's syndication, right? Or somehow, be a money lender and get a higher return on their money. There's all kinds of things, but it's never too late to start. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think that applies to real estate and investing in general, right? If you
Mhm.
take action to improve your finances and your future today, I think you'll be in a better position in a year or 5 years from now than if you do nothing. So I think that applies, like you said, in real estate and investing, especially somebody starting at 40. I mean, they still have decades, right, of compounding and interest and for their money to work for them. So it's
Yeah.
definitely too late.
Yeah, because we're living a lot longer now as a society.
Absolutely.
40 used to be life expectancy, and now, people are living. My great aunt just turned 100, right? Like, oh, and she's totally cognitive and gets around, right? Like, it's just crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it is a blessing, right? Bless her little heart. And then I have a question. What my show's called Born to Be Brave, and I always
Okay.
I always ask people, when's a time in your life that you were brave that you can share with us?
Yeah. I felt like the boldest thing I did was definitely quit my job because I think the security and just it was very against society, right? Of going to college, getting this degree, getting this good job, and I'm working for the one of the big four accounting firms, which is very sought after. And then I put 8 years in, and I make an exit, and now can't remember is it 20 months or 22 months? I quit May 1st, 2023. So 20, 22 months in right now, and I have no regrets. But that was definitely, I would say, hard to do, right? Because I think it's not accepted in society. So being able to tell your parents, like I couldn't even tell my mom I quit my job and I was going to do real estate full time and be an investor. at the time because I knew she wouldn't take it well and she would just call me every day panicking. So I think it was, I don't know how many months or before she actually found out that I no longer work at my job. And then I told my dad because my dad is a lot more entrepreneurial and open-minded. So, there's only certain people I feel like you can tell things to because society, they don't look at it positively. Like if you tell your neighbors or, somebody that you don't know that you quit your job and now you're just sitting at home pursuing your passion and living on rental income, they're gonna look at you crazy.
Yeah. And I think that we do have to kind of protect ourselves, right? Because otherwise it can really weigh you down.
Absolutely.
I have pretty thick skin now. Now I pretty much don't care what people think of me at this point. Sometimes some things are hurtful. People say because I'm doing more stuff online, and a lot more videos. And I have somebody that sends me kind of mean messages. I might block them soon, but I don't know. I'm trying to decide what to do there. But it is interesting that people have opinions on, everything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's going against what they're doing, right? So they
Hmm.
think it's abnormal, especially entrepreneurship. I feel like when I speak to some friends that I have that are not entrepreneurs and they don't have that mindset, they just tell me it's a waste of time. Why are you doing these? Why are you pursuing these coaching programs? Why are you paying for mentors? They think like a lot of this stuff is a scam. Like somebody yesterday told me that one of the coaching programs I signed up for last year, when I was explaining it, they're like, it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. It sounds like a scam. Why are you wasting money on this? But I'm just continually investing in my education, self-improvement, like you said, mentorship, coaching, and just trying to be 1% better each and every day.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Like, I think the key is to get in the rooms where people are doing what you want to do and network. And we become like the people we hang out with. There's a saying, you become like the five people you hang out with.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you don't get in these rooms where people are doing more, right there, because I feel like there's an innate desire for humans if we don't push it down and it's not squelched and we start listening to ourselves to grow and expand. And so when you get with people that are also growing and expanding and getting the 1% better, right? I love the one when I read Atomic Habits is where that guy talks about 1% better. And before I read that book, um, the guy that owned our office had like a book club and we would meet and he had us read that book and I was like, oh my gosh, that was like a big epiphany for me because what would happen is I would set these super huge goals, right? Massive, massive goals.
Yes.
And the problem is they were too big. Like, I mean, it was good to have big goals, but I needed some smaller ones in between to get towards them. And so then sometimes I'd get too overwhelmed and it would be too hard, and so then I wouldn't take all the inspired action I needed to take. And so now I just always focus on that same thing. Just get 1% better, 1% better. Just keep learning. I still have big goals, but even I almost signed up for something. I have three things I want to focus on this year is buying more properties, um, YouTube, and finishing my book on investing in real estate, right? So those are my three things this year. Real estate, helping my clients as real estate, buying investment properties, so real estate, YouTube, and then finishing the book, right? Those are my three things. And my health, right? And spirituality. I guess there's a bunch, but the big real, I guess I have a few goals. But anyway, but there was this other thing that somebody said, "Oh, you should do this with me," right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like really good," right? And then, but when I pray about everything and I wasn't getting an answer on it, and I was like, and then it came to me when we do too many things all at once, you can't do anything effectively. And that
Mm,
I'm already focused on those three things for my business, right? My clients in real estate, and then the YouTube and the book. Those are three solid things. I don't need to put another big thing, right? Because then I won't have the time to finish these things. I call that I think Pace calls that shiny object syndrome.
yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here's this new shiny thing over here. You go and we want to go after that, right? And so I think that we have to stay focused and get clarity on where we want to go and what we want to do. And so we can make sure when we're making decisions for our time and how we spend our time and energy that aligns with where we want to go. And I'm glad that God pointed it out and said, You're getting overly busy. That will make you overly busy. And so that won't help you do the things you already said you wanted to do this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we just have to figure it out. And what is your Mount Everest? Pace said we got to start talking more about what our Mount Everest is in our life. Do you have a Mount Everest yet, or have you been thinking about that? Do you know what he was talking about?
I don't think I listened to it, but I guess is that like your Mount Everest like type of goal that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so a big one, like the over time, right? Like a big, huge one. Do you have one?
I'm trying to think a big one. I think the one I'm working toward right now is retiring my husband. So that is my Mount Everest is getting him to be able to be at home with me and our son. So that way he doesn't have to work anymore. But I think another one, I don't know if it's a Mount Everest, but I really want to become a New York Times bestselling author and to write financial books for like beginners and, for women in order to be able to take control of their money and start investing so they can have that financial knowledge in like a book version. So instead of, having to work with me for 6 months or something, like something that they can go to just get started and get an array of information that's relevant to their beginning of their investment journey. So I would love to write a book like that. And I think that's one of my goals in the next 5 years.
Well, I would love to introduce you to my friend Ellie. She's my publisher and friend and coach, and she helps women strategically write books so they
Mm,
can to implement for speaking and for coaching and to empower people, but also strategically for your business and your life goals. I'd love to introduce you to her later, so I'll make that connection later for you.
yeah, I'd love that.
One of my friends just became another international best-selling author. Her book just came yesterday. I'm making a reel to celebrate her and to promote her book. Isn't that cute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I meet all these awesome people because of her, you know. I love that goal. I can't wait to read your book. It's going to be fantastic. And I loved the Mount Everest of retiring your husband. How wonderful to have your family have time freedom, right? And the freedom to raise your son together.
Yeah, I think when you're at home by yourself and like you have the time freedom, I think it's not as fun if you don't have it for your spouse as well. So,
I agree. My husband's sitting right here. And we work together and it's nice. People are like, "Don't you get sick of each other?" I'm like, "No." Maybe once in a while we get irritated with each other because we know we're normal people, but like it's really nice to be able to have that flexibility, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a great goal. I can't wait to hear about that too. My next question for you is how important do you think, like when we all experience like failure, how important is it when we experience failure to realize that failure is part of life and to keep going?
Well, I think one of the challenges was definitely the first investment. Like I said, I purchased as a house hack, right? And I felt like it was a failure of a house hack because A, my husband didn't want to live in it. Um, B, I was doing the construction downstairs and everything wrong was happening, from one contractor to the next one. And then it was just so many different hurdles and challenges. And I think if I didn't go through that, and I think if I didn't build that, if I didn't go through those learning lessons, I feel like I wouldn't have the knowledge to pursue additional investments and be able to buy other houses because now that I kind of dealt with that and I knew how to proceed and being able to overcome it, I think it's crucial. So I think any failure that you have is a lesson, and I think it's necessary to kind of build both your resilience to it, right? And then
Hmm.
be able to kind of grow from it.
Yeah, it's crucial because you have self-confidence because you overcame that, right? It builds character and self-confidence too.
Absolutely. I think when I tell some of my stories of the investments I purchased and some of the things I've dealt with, people are like, I would have sold the house. I would have just walked away. And that's not me. So I look for alternative creative solutions. And when I set my mind to something, I definitely choose to pursue it and accomplish it to my best ability.
Yeah, you just pivot, right?
Right.
Pivoting is so important. Being flexible to pivot is so important.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
don't think everybody has that skill naturally, right?
No, and I do think we can learn it, right? I used to be pretty rigid and now I'm pretty in the flow.
Yeah,
And so I do feel like we can progress on that, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And so
You
like,
have the right mindset. So that goes back to mindset.
yeah, growth mindset. If you decide that you're going to be rigid and you can't pivot, then you will not be able to pivot and you will be rigid. But if you decide that you're open to like, oh, this door closed, but that window over there just opened, right?
Yeah.
And and so when we start processing, and I remember when I took a philosophy class when I was in college, and I don't know why I picked that class, but anyway, I learned so much in that class because it was like mind blowing. I'd never thought of some of the stuff there. And they're like, if someone gives you two options, don't ever take those two options, at least think about the third, fourth, or fifth option that because they want you to pick one of those two, but there might be something better for you that's
Yeah.
not even being presented to you. And I was like, oh, I'm in college going, oh, right. Like, so we just have to expand our mind and know that there's always more ways. And then there's always somebody, a who. That's why community is so important because there's somebody who's maybe been through what you've been through and they might have a better idea of what you need to do to fix your problem.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And have you read a book that has really impacted your life?
I was just thinking of a book when you were speaking. I don't know if you've read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I love that book.
I
I
love
read
that
it.
book.
I read it every couple years.
Same, same. I feel like whenever I need motivation or if I'm not in the right mindset, I pick up that book and I just get instant inspiration. Like the last time, I think the first time I listened to it, I just had so many thoughts flowing as I'm listening to the book. I don't know if you experienced the same thing, but
In
it
the
definitely
shower
was
too. That happens a lot
inspiration.
to me in the shower too. Mm-hmm.
But same thing, yeah. I feel like I do a lot of great thinking in the shower.
Me too.
Just because,
I'm going to show you what book too. Hold on. This
okay,
is, this is called, I don't know, I don't normally do this, but this is called The Science of Getting Rich by
okay.
Wallace Wattles. And it was written a long, long time ago too. And I read this every year. I listen on my YouTube channel. I recorded me reading chapters 4, 7, 11, and 14. But you got to read the whole, you can read the whole book. I didn't read the whole thing. But anyway, Bob Proctor, he's dead now, but he was a great, great coach and
Mm,
thought leader. And he would have his clients and students listen to chapters for those chapters every year for 90 days. And he would have Mary Morrissey, who's also a thought leader, do it she's got the Brave Thinking Institute. Anyway, I paid to be in this mentorship and we did it and now I do it every year because like with Think and Grow Rich and these things, they help rewire your brain and your subconscious for what's possible.
yeah,
And you still have to take action, but inspired action. But when we start expanding what we think is possible, right? It really helps. Don't you feel like those ideas, you're reading the book, it's talking to you, and you're like, it takes you, it's an easy story, right?
yeah,
But then God opens up our mind to possibilities and puts these things into our head about, oh, I should maybe do this or that, or I should explore that, or
absolutely. I think that's kind of the revelation I had in 2018 when I became the accidental landlord. I started doing research, and the first book everybody picks up when they get into real estate is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So I think that was my first book where I had the revelation, and when I listened to the book, it's a super easy story to follow, right? But then I
yes,
think it opens up your mind and it changes the way you think and look at things in the world. So then next time you go outside or you're, in company right after reading the book, you start seeing things that the book is talking about and how things are and what you should do differently. So I think that's a really big mindset shift book for anybody getting started on their financial journey or getting into real estate.
Rich Dad Poor Dad is amazing. I met Robert Kawasaki when I met Pace. Is that funny?
Really? Okay.
They were speaking at the same event in Las Vegas, and I got to go to the VIP. Like I don't know, it wasn't a dinner, but it was some disco thing. Anyway, but he was there, and I got to talk to him for a few minutes. He was very nice. hmm
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad he wrote the book because my goal was just like I guess everyone's goal was to get a secure job, be a teacher, and uh, I liked being a teacher because I got the same spring break and Christmas vacation and summers off with my kids, and right, like I thought I had it all figured out. And then when I read his book, I'm like, Oh, yeah. Besides not having any money to spend while I'm on break with my kids, this is never going to work out eventually, right? Because my income is I'm trading time for dollars instead of putting my assets to work for me. But nobody ever taught me that. I never got any career counseling or money, financial literacy coaching or training,
Yeah. And why do you think that is that we don't have financial literacy education, like in our school systems or in college? Why do you think we're not taught this information?
You want my real opinion?
Yeah.
I think that the people, which I'm maybe going to sound crazy here, but I think that the people who are in charge that have the most money set up the education system, and their goal was not for us to become entrepreneurial and independent thinkers and to have emotional resiliency. I think their goal when they set up the curriculum and the way even school works was to keep people to produce good employees that are dependent instead of independent thinkers. And so I actually, when I started realizing all this, I pulled all my kids out of public school and put them all in private school. And I'm really glad my grandchildren go to private schools, because I know that everyone's doing the best they can, everyone, and most people don't have that option. But I do think if I was doing it over again, I would actually not even put my kids in private school. I would homeschool everybody.
Mm.
And I was really against homeschooling when I was a young mother because I was a credentialed teacher and I was always told that homeschoolers are bad and crazy and they're not educating or teaching their kids to read and write, right? And so that it's interesting how looking back, so that's I did the best I could back then, but today I wouldn't even put my kids in private school. Today I would put my kids in homeschooling and travel the world with them and do school through life. But that's just my opinion and my experience. But yeah, I don't feel like because we've known for a long time now that it doesn't work to like even Social Security if everyone's paying into it, right? Nobody, but I don't know what they do with it. I actually don't know anything about that, but I just know that and I don't really know that much about it, right? Um, I don't know what this says.
CD, certificate of deposit,
Uh-huh.
compact disc.
I don't know what you mean. So my husband's telling me to do something, but I don't understand what it means. What are you saying? So you can just jump in. So,
He came home. The private school that Carter went to when he was in middle school, he came home one day and he said, "Hey Dad, I want to get a CD."
Oh, wow.
I thought, "Oh, you want to go get a compact disc?" He goes, "No, no, no, I want one of those financial CD things."
Like a certificate of deposit. Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, we don't teach
mhm.
financial literacy in public schools. And it just happened that he got that choice to uh, take that elective, and he took it. And then, I was able to find him a CD that paid really well at the time, like 2.5 times more than anything else at the time. Came home one day and said, "Hey, you have a CD." And he's really good with money.
Yeah. But
Wow.
we pulled him out and put him in a very elite, there's a good word. I was trying to look at a word without very elite private school, right? And then we put our kids in private school. And I did not remember that story, so that's why,
That's okay.
yeah. But yes, I feel like we need to take responsibility as a grandparent for me, as a mother for you, to shine our light. And that's why I'm doing YouTube and I'm making these videos so they're permanently there, they're evergreen, and people can come back and watch these and see these and they can glean from each interview what they want, right? And
Right.
that people can reach out to you. Your kids will be different. The people who you associate with, like I was drawn to you, right? On that thing, I was like, oh, she is just the cutest thing. I wish when I was her age, I knew anything about finances, right? I was just I didn't know a lot about it, but I can't go back and recreate that. I celebrate all of the things that got me to here, but I can bring people like you onto my show and highlight what you're doing, and then we can have these impactful conversations because I do believe that I don't think public school is a great place for kids personally, but and I was a public school teacher and I know so many great, it's not the teachers. The teachers are fantastic. So many of them are so good. It's just it's the whole system. It's not set up to produce. Um,
Entrepreneurs, like you said,
mhm,
it's not preparing us for the real world and the
mhm.
possibilities. It's preparing us to become a worker, like you said. I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that.
yeah, and
The
a lot for my generation, they just said go to college, go to college, go to college, and same with my kids. And the problem with that is they took out wood shop and plumbing and home ec, and they took all the stuff out of high school and middle school that was really important, right? And let me
Mhm.
tell you, if you own a plumbing business or an electrical business or so many other businesses that would be frowned on when I was a kid, like they're just like go to college, go to college, go to college. And I think that so many of these other businesses, or even like owning a vending machine business or car washes, or there's so many other possibilities, right? Owning laundromats and car repair shops and all of these things, air conditioning and pool services. There's people that make incredible income and they scale these businesses or they just have it on a small scale, but they do fantastic and maybe even better than the people who went to college.
Absolutely.
And I just feel like I don't know why the narrative is like that because um, I'm at a point in my life where I don't pay a lot of attention to all those things because I protect my peace at all costs. And so I don't really watch the news and I don't watch a lot of anything that would distract. I follow along the financial markets and bond market and things like that. So I'm not completely out of the loop. And then my kids call me or text me if anything really big happens in the world. Or I'm on social media so you can see people are upset about this or that, right? And
Yeah.
so I see, but I can decide how fast I scroll past that. Because for me personally, I'm almost 60 and we've changed presidents multiple times in my adult life. And my life has not changed drastically from one to the next. And I pray for all of them and I'm grateful for them. And I go vote and John and we study everything and go everything. But I really believe that we're just personally responsible for creating a life we love and for what we let into our lives and that's what we're responsible for and that we can question our thoughts, we can use our imaginations to co-create like this ideal life, or we can use our imaginations to beat ourselves up and rehash every bad thing that happened to us, right? And like so that's my opinion on public school because I did pull my kids out eventually. I wish I'd never plopped them in there, but I didn't know. And I was brainwashed to believe that the other options were bad.
Yeah, and with you saying all that, I guess my Mount Everest long-term goal would be to make a difference. You know, if there's a way that I can impact the financial literacy in the country and helping just starting from our youth, I would love to do speaking engagements like that. I told you I'm not a great speaker, but you know, for that, I feel
Yet,
like I would find it in, you know, in myself to become a great speaker so that I can give this information to our youth and then help them set them up for success.
yeah, I love that. And you're not a good speaker yet, but you will be yet. Because that's my thing is to be a big speaker, right? My shiny object thing was a speaking thing, right? But I can do that next year, right? I've already given quite a few keynote speeches, but if you want to get really good, but that's not my focus this year. It's the book, real estate, right? And
Yep.
YouTube. And then I can do the speaking later. But there is a lady I follow. I found her. I can't remember her name, but she is changing. She pulled her kids out and she's changing education. She has a private school now in quite a few states, but she's changing American education herself.
Oh,
And
wow.
because she didn't want to homeschool. And
Yep.
so, look and see if we can find her. Hold on. She's she's awesome. She's on Instagram. Changing education, I think, is her thing. And It is interesting, but you can be and will be on stages changing financial literacy. Just like I'm going to help women uh, learn to invest in real estate and take and businesses, right? And to take charge of their finances, to educate themselves. Like they don't need to rely on an expert. They can check in with experts, but they should have enough knowledge to be
Right.
like, I don't know if I agree with that. Those numbers don't make sense to me, right?
Yep.
And I used to say, I'm not a numbers person. And then I had somebody that's really successful in real estate tell me, he says, Colleen, don't ever say that again. You must become a numbers person. And
Yep.
he's, I'm like, okay. And so now I'm a numbers person. Now I can underwrite properties and now I can look at and evaluate and be like, when I go on a listing appointment and people tell me, oh, I want to list my house for $2.2 million and everything else is sold for 1.8, right? Around them, right? And their
Yep.
house doesn't even look like any of the 1.8s. Their house probably is worth 1.7. But I know that going into the appointment, right? And
Mm.
so it's an interview process. Like they're interviewing me, but really I'm interviewing at this point in my relationship and career, I'm interviewing them. They just don't know it. Like I'm just like, so when they tell me like, oh, I'm like, so how much do you want to sell your house for? Have you thought about that and come up with a number? And they're like, oh, 2.2, but everything's at 1.8, And I'm like, That's amazing. That's great. So like, how did you arrive at that number? Right.
Yep.
And so then when they try to tell me and I'm like, oh yeah. And if yeah, that's her. Um, I'll tell her in a minute. So literally I'm like, and when they can show me, maybe there's something that I didn't know about, right? And then I'm like, oh yeah, but if they can just tell me like some weird stuff about why they think their house is worth like 400,000 more than every other house. I'm just and then I show them the comps and then they still don't get it. And so after we go over all the other houses that sold and we look at the pictures and how does that compare to your house? And then they're still like, yeah, but I still want to do that one. I have to think about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do I want to get entangled with them?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's important when you are self-employed and you're seeking clients, right? You definitely have to work with people I feel like you align with, right? That
Mhm.
the values are there, the mindset is important. And I think that's also in my coaching business, when I speak to potential clients, I'm also interviewing them per se because
Mhm.
is this a good fit? This somebody coachable? Is this somebody open-minded? Where's their mindset? Do they want to learn? Do they really want to take control? So I'm 100% with you on that from an
Mhm.
investment standpoint.
Yeah, it's really important because I match my energy with their energy. So if they don't sound very motivated, right? My motivation has to match their motivation. I don't need my sign in front of their house just sitting there, right? And then calling, why didn't my house sell? I don't know, the $400,000 that were overpriced. Maybe that's it. This lady's name is Mackenzie Price. She's the founder of the 2 Hour Learning, and it's called her Instagram's called Future of underscore Education. I do not know her at all. But I
Okay.
am completely, she has 666,000 followers. She says, I was unsatisfied with my kids' school, so I started my own AI-driven life skills focused. Follow along and let's start the education revolution. So she's on it and I'm in love with her. I don't
Cool.
know her. In fact, I'm going to reach out to her and see if she'll come on here. But this
Yeah.
woman is freaking, I don't know if you can see,
No, no,
maybe.
no. I'm looking at her page right now.
Yeah.
She actually is followed by 31 people that I know. So
Yeah. And yeah, she's 39 of my friends, right? And my daughter follows her too, and Chad Glover and a whole bunch of people. I'm interviewing Chad. Oh, Susie Holman. Yeah. So Elena Tang, right? All these people. So I share a lot of her stuff because I do believe that our time is precious and hopefully kids will get a better education than I hope it becomes the standard, not the exception, right? I was fortunate to have the money to send my children. I sacrificed everything to put my kids in private school, and I mean, literally everything. And not everyone can do that. Financially, that's not an option for everyone. It should be, it would be nice if the paid education was actually beneficial to the kids that are going for everyone from every social economic. When I was a teacher, I taught in the inner city And a lot of people would ask me, why don't you teach closer to home? I'm like, everyone wants to teach the rich white kids. No, I'm going to go hang out in the inner city and make a difference there. And anyway, so I do wish that the education system was, better for everybody. And maybe something me and you can work on later when we're older, when I'm older. I'm all for that, right? Let's make it better for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Well, anything you want to share with my audience before we go and wrap it up?
I think the main, I guess, topic that we discussed, I think it is never too late to get started, whether it's in real estate, whether it's investing. I think if you have the mindset and if you want a change to make your life better, your family's life better, right? I think taking action, trying to be 1% better each and every day, seeking that mentorship from somebody that's either been there, is doing it, right, has the experience, the knowledge. I think that's really key. So that's the biggest takeaways. I think it's just anything is possible, and if you start today, you will be better tomorrow.
I love that. Thanks for joining us. I just loved having you. And then where can people find you?
Yeah, my Instagram, Facebook is Anastasia Aleman. Instagram is Financially Savvy Investor. So they can follow me, reach out, maybe show support, or just look at the content to just get a little bit more education. So I try to put out content that's easy to follow, but love any feedback. If anybody has any questions, anything specific they want me to create content on, I always love content inspiration ideas. So I appreciate it.
Oh, good. You guys go give her a like and a follow and comment on her stuff and interact with her. And if you have a question, yeah, she'll answer it. And she's awesome, you guys. I spent the whole day with her on a river, and I just fell in love with her. So she's a good person. I'm sure you could tell through our interview. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends who could benefit. Help a sister out. Let them know about this information so they can educate themselves and change their generational wealth trajectory. So thanks for joining us.